You are Locked On Giants POSTCAST. Part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, at the very least, it was competitive, but still a loss. Another game, another defeat. This time, Big Blue falls late to Washington. Final score 21-18. How about Austin Seibert? 7 field goals. Washington again kicked 7 field goals to win 21-18. We'll get to Graham Gano, Seibert's counterpart, later in the show. Hello, everybody. I'm Jay Berman. If you're a New Yorker, you might recognize me. If not, welcome aboard. I've spent more than 2 decades in the biz, everything from TV to web to radio. Follow me on X at Jay Berman. That's Jayberman. Welcome to the Locked On Giants POSTCAST, both on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel and the Locked On Giants podcast feed. The POSTCAST gives you a place to hang out every single Giants game. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Lots of venting to do. Nothing but field goals for Washington today. They did not once enter the end zone for 6. Instead, this Seibert guy kicked 7 field goals. Giants are now 0-2. Coming up here on the show, we'll discuss Daniel Jones' performance. So-so. There was some good, there was some bad. Same goes for rookies Malik Nabers and Drew Phillips. Have some beasts there. They were excellent. Also want to chat some positives and negatives, plenty of both. All that coming up on the POSTCAST. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, my name is Jay Berman. Welcome inside the Locked On Giants POSTCAST after a 21-18 defeat at the hands of Washington. I think perhaps the most sad part about it really is the fact that the Giants actually didn't play terrible. We'll get to the defense, specifically the third down defense, but the Giants didn't look terrible, and they still couldn't win against a rookie quarterback and a bad defensive unit. Again, Giants fall 21-18. Neither team really had anything down the field in either half. It was lots of short and underneath passes. And the Giants, really the only team to look downfield in regards to Malik Nabers. He was the only one. By the way, game's first incompletion came with 9 minutes remaining in the second quarter. Jalen Daniels had completed his first 10 passes. That's a week after Sam Darnold completed his first 12 passes. Again, touchdowns from Devin Singletary for the Giants. Also, Malik Nabers had a touchdown. And of course, the Giants have no kicker today. We'll get to that. Trust me. Giants, as we said, are now 0-2. They have what statistics believe is a 6% chance of making the postseason now. If you start 0-2, roughly a 6% chance of making the postseason. As for the defense, could not get off the field at any point today, despite the fact that there were no Washington touchdowns. The Commanders' opening drive, they get the first kickoff. It's their longest drive in 2 years. They take 10 minutes off the clock. And you know what? Yeah, they held them to a field goal, but the problem was the Giants were gassed at that point. 80 degrees on the sidelines, probably even warmer, huffing and puffing, IVs needed, oxygen masks, all that jazz, if you will. And it still didn't matter. The Giants, as we said, are now 0-2. Now to Daniel Jones. And considering his career against Washington, no surprise that we all felt pretty good about it. Jones has beaten the Washington franchise that have been named 3 different teams, 3 different names. He's beat them all. He was 5-1-1 with 11 touchdowns against Washington coming into today. However, he's lost 5 starts in a row coming into today. Now make it 6. It was the first game in nearly 2 years that Daniel Jones threw a couple of touchdown passes. Also hard to believe. Nabers back of the end zone, and boy, did Malik Nabers look great. So did Drew Phillips, for that matter. A rookie on offense, a rookie on defense. Expected it from Nabers. Let's take a look at the numbers. Nabers, 10 catches, 127 yards, a touchdown. He had 18 targets, so Daniel Jones clearly going after him today. Darius Slayton and Wandale Robinson each chipped in to combine for 5 catches, but with the exception of the Wandale touchdown, not much from the wide receivers today, with the exception, obviously, of Malik Nabers, who was awesome. As for Drew Phillips, we talked rookies. We said Malik Nabers was a stud. Drew Phillips is a stud as well. He had 12 tackles today, 7 solo, got to the quarterback as well. Big hit after big hit. If you recall that big hit down the right sideline for Austin Eckler after a big play, looked like Phillips actually hurt himself, actually jumped into an airborne Eckler. Phillips was down, came off under his own power. I'm sure he's okay. The defense could not handle Brian Robinson. 17 carries, 133 yards. That's an average of nearly 8 yards a carry. His long was 40. That's the one where it appeared he was down, and he sort of finds his way out of the scrum. Regardless, Washington again wins. Jaden Daniels, 23 of 29. As we said, he completed his first 10 passes, and we spoke about it. Last week, Sam Darnold completed his first 12 passes. Today, Daniels completed his first 10 passes. Giants defense, with the exception, really, of getting off the field on 4th down, well, the defense was not good today, specifically on 3rd down. We do give him credit for forcing all those penalties. In the red zone, the defense up front forced 5 red zone false starts against Washington, and that clearly prohibited them from entering the end zone for 6. So I guess you got to give a little credit to the boys up front, Dexter Lawrence and company. But the tackling all day was miserable. And obviously that big that big third quarter run from Brian Robinson, as we just mentioned, was a perfect example of that. Just could not get him down. And to be fair, in both Robinson and Daniels, tricky runners, very tricky runners, and Robinson's tough, as is Daniels. Daniels, incredibly elusive, really, really hard to get down. All right, we have to talk about the good and the bad, because you know what? There was plenty of it. Let's start with the good. We talked about Malik Nabers, and we talked about Drew Phillips, who, by the way, you can tell just by looking at him, but Phillips is 5'11", 180. Boy, does he ever play bigger than that. Again, 5'11", 180. He's got to be one of the smallest guys on the team, even next to Graham Gano. Gano is bigger than him. We'll get to him. Don't worry. But he plays much bigger than that. As we said, appeared to get hurt on that Eckler hit. I think he was okay after that. Wandale had a good game, too. That was an important touchdown at the time. So that put the Giants ahead for the first time. So Wandale was serviceable today as well. All right. Lots to get to in regard to the guys who were not good. We'll start with Graham Gano, who on the opening kickoff, I guess, tore his hammy. We don't know exactly what the injury was. He did have his helmet on later in the game. Not sure if that meant he was ready to kick. I don't know. All I know is he popped up on the injury report a couple of days ago. 1 play, he's out. So Graham Gano killing the Giants once again. Also, Brian Dable, not sure what he was expecting out of Graham Gano. Sure, Graham says he's good to go. Coach says, okay, fine. We don't need a replacement kicker. But you know what? As we said, he popped up on the injury report. So it should have been something that Dable made the move on, for lack of a better term, made the move on. Gano should not have been there. It cost the Giants 3 extra points. The first one from the punter was terrible. Missed. And then they had 2 two-point conversion tries on the ensuing 2 touchdowns. They did not look good on either of those plays. Darius Slayton had a penalty on 3rd and short, dropped the 2-point conversion in the end zone. He was not great. And as we said, with the exception of Nabers, and the defenses will catch on real quick, there'll be double teams all over him. But with the exception of Nabers, not much from the receivers today. The punter, Gillen, couldn't reach the landing zone on the kickoff attempt after the Giants took the lead. He also missed the extra point attempt. He stunk today. The refs stunk today. They took out Nabers after that first drive hit. If you recall, it was a helmet-to-helmet hit, so it should have been a penalty. They took him off for what they believed to be a concussion protocol type thing, but they never called the penalty. So please, the refs, that one was beside me. Also, the phantom hold on Drew Phillips on a big third down early in the fourth quarter. That was huge. Also, on the opening kickoff, this isn't necessarily on the refs, more on the league. The league wants more fun on the returns. You got that today, and it's an instant holding penalty. And I'm not saying it wasn't a hold. It was clearly a hold. It was a fistful of jersey. But again, what are we doing here? Can't have it both ways. Can't have all these kickoffs and all these penalties. Doesn't quite work together. Devin Singletary looked good today. 16 carries, 95 yards, and a score. Did have a catch out of the backfield, but he was pretty good. And he wore number 26. Perhaps for 3 hours, we forgot about Saquon today. Yeah. As we said, got to give credit to the defense up front for the Giants. They forced 5 red zone false starts against Washington. Regardless, the Giants are now 0-2. And as we told you at the top, 6% chance of making the postseason if you start 0-2. All right, we'll take a quick break as we discuss what's coming up next for the Giants. Of course, it's week 3 versus the Browns. We'll set you up for that. And, of course, we'll run through the numbers. 0-2 are the New York Giants. All right, Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. How about this? 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win. Also, that comes at any point in time in September. That's right. 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends, and we're only a few short weeks away from that. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, we also have to tell you about DoorDash. Football finally back, and we love it. It means it's time to order your favorite game day foods, snacks, and drinks on DoorDash without missing a play. There's nothing better than some wings. And by the way, ranch guy, carrot guy here for what it's worth. You know I'm getting them delivered with DoorDash, and you can too with this code just for Locked On listeners. Use promo code LOCKEDFALL24. That for 50% off when you spend $15 or more on your first order. That's good for up to $10 off. It's a limited time offer and is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. All right, we are back after a 21-18 loss for Big Blue against Washington. Up next will be the Cleveland Browns and then the Dallas Cowboys. Let's lay out the next 2 games. Sunday, 1 o'clock game in Cleveland against the Browns. It's been a few years since the Giants were last in Cleveland. That was a win, by the way. Odell Beckham scored a touchdown in that game. For what it's worth, the Giants will try to avoid an 0-3 start. Then a short week. Week 4 is the Thursday nighter against the Cowboys. Staring at, what are we staring at? 1-2? 1-3? 0-4? Who knows? As we said, focus now on the Cleveland Browns after a 21-18 loss. A big reason why the Giants' run defense and the defense on third down. Brian Robinson Jr., $133 on the ground. Didn't score a touchdown, but did have that long 40-yarder, which he sort of emerged out of the center of the pile without going down. Nothing terribly alarming, at least in regard to good stuff from the Washington receiving staff. Zach Ertz had 4 catches. Really, that was it. Terry McLaurin had 6 catches for, get this, 22 yards. So the offensive standouts, Brian Robinson Jr. for Washington, Malik Nabers for the Giants. As for Daniel Jones, 16 of 28 for 178 yards and 2 touchdowns. He only took 1 sack. As we said earlier, Jones throws 2 touchdowns in a game for the first time in 2 years. Singletary ran for 95 and that score. Giants got touchdowns from 3 young guys, Nabers, Singletary, and obviously Wandale Robinson. All right, 21-18. Washington now 1-1. The Cowboys, by the way, smoked by New Orleans today. So that's good news in the NFC East. Have to wait and see what the Eagles do. They've got the Monday nighter against the Falcons in Philadelphia. All right, Daniel Jones has beaten the Washington franchise 5 out of 7 times. Well, you know what? The good times came to an end today. And it wasn't necessarily Daniel Jones' fault. And this was perhaps the most disturbing thing about today is, for me at least, the narrative was that the Giants didn't play that bad. The Gano thing was clearly a mistake on both his fault, on both his shoulders, and Dable for letting him play. We saw it last year. Gano got hurt, got the Giants in trouble, and more of the same this year. All right, so his first game in nearly 2 years. In nearly a year with 2 touchdown passes. The Malik Nabers touchdown came in the end zone on a wonderful move, but we got to talk about it. The huge drop on 4th down with right around 2 minutes to play in the 4th quarter. The Giants would have got the first down and likely would have won the game, would have left Washington with very little time left if they had scored. Now, obviously, they weren't going to score 3 because they didn't have a kicker. So they would have gone in if they had scored via the end zone, 6 points. Regardless, it didn't matter because Nabers dropped the ball. He was very, very disappointed in himself. And to be honest, rightfully so. It was a huge drop. Other than that, he had an amazing day, and you can really see what kind of weapon he can be. He is a stud. He is a top 10 receiver already. Yeah, that's some lofty praise for a rookie. But you know what? He's that good. And I think he'll continue to be that good. We'll start to see it next week in Cleveland, I believe. All right, as we talked about the good and the bad, the tackling was terrible, really, all day. Obviously, that big 3rd quarter run from Brian Robinson was a perfect example of that. But we do have to give credit to the defense. We did it, and it needs to be repeated. There were 6 Washington red zone penalties, 5 false start penalties. You got to give credit to the Giants defense there. The problem was once you got to 3rd down, they couldn't get the heck off the field. Seems to be a common problem for the Giants these last couple of years, just unable to get off the field on a big 3rd down. Washington does not have a potent offensive attack. Countless, just endless 3rd and long conversions for Washington. It was rough. It was real rough. All right, as we said, we'll set you up for Cleveland. That is next week, a 1:00 game in Cleveland against the Browns. Again, this is the Locked On Giants postcast. We'll take a quick break and again set you up for Cleveland. All right, let's talk about now game time for a moment. One of my favorite things to do, go see live events, be it a game, a concert, whatever. One of the most favorite things to do. So Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that make getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? it is game time. All right, a heartbreaking defeat. What else is new? Giants lose again. Another day, another loss. 21-18 is the final score. The Giants are now 0-2. And according to the Fox telecast, the Giants now have a 6% chance of making the postseason. It's not impossible, but things certainly have to change moving forward. All right, as we said, the Giants will face the Cleveland Browns next Sunday. That is a 1:00 game, and the line is there. We're going to give it to you. Browns are laying 5.5, total 43.5. Looks like we will not have a weather problem in Cleveland, although we're still a week out. And we're not going to go past this week because we still have to figure out how the Giants tackle in Cleveland. An elusive quarterback in Jaden Daniels proved very difficult to tackle. Deshaun Watson, despite the struggles, very elusive, very difficult to tackle. The Giants will have their work cut out for them. Let's see if they can get off the field on third down for the first time in what seems like forever. Again, Giants and Browns in Cleveland. That's a 1:00 game. The Browns are laying 5.5. Giants and Browns total is 43.5. All right, Daniel Jones, 16 of 28, threw 2 touchdowns for the first time in a year, was sacked only once, and Devin Singletary had a pretty good game. We bring that up because we want to discuss the offensive line, which poked some holes there for Singletary for a good portion of this game. For some reason, it seemed like despite a couple of runs, it seemed like the Giants sort of went away from the run. It was more dominant in the first half. Seemed like they went away from it a little bit in the second half of the second half, mainly the fourth quarter. Again, Singletary just 16 carries on 95 yards, so he would have gone over 100 with a few more carries. That being said, Brian Robinson only rushed for 17 carries, and he went for $133, averaged 7-8 on the ground. Too much. And by the way, Jaden Daniels, we talked about his elusiveness, 10 carries for 44 yards. He broke the back of the Giants on third down multiple times. All right, Giants lose 21-18. I've had it. Can't discuss it anymore. They now have a 6% chance of moving forward into the postseason, and who knows, that might even be too high. All right, thank you for making Locked On Sports New York your first listen today. Now for your second listen, go find the new Locked On NFL with 2 shows every day. First, the Madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on your YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And before we get out of here, want to mention our partner in crime over at Locked On Giants, Patricia Traina. She handles all the stuff over at Locked On Giants, as we said. She's the best. Follow, subscribe, and enjoy. All right, the Giants lose 21-18. They're now 0-2. Washington 1-1. Next week, we've got the Cleveland Browns. Giants 5.5-point underdogs heading in. The total's 43.5. And guess what? We'll be right here in the same spot next week, hopefully not to vent, but to congratulate the Giants on a huge win.